Hi, my name is Laurie, and I struggle with bipolar disorder type 2 and borderline personality disorder. So the thing about having bipolar and borderline in particular is it affects every single area of my life. It affects my relationship with God, and my relationship with God or my faith affects my mental illness. And sometimes it can be in a very, very negative way, and sometimes it can be in a positive way. And this is a story about one of those times where God intervened on my behalf. Now, at the time, I was going through so much. I was so depressed. I had no peace in my brain or in my life. And I thought that God hated me. I thought that God was punishing me for every single word or thing that I had ever said or done in my entire life. I was searching for God, but I couldn't find him anywhere. So I don't know how to explain this, but for whatever reason, in this moment, when I actually needed him the most, he did intervene on my behalf. So in a video that I talked about the day my brain broke, I talked about how I had lost everything. I lost my husband, his income, my health insurance benefits, my house, everything in my house, and my car. I lost everything all at once. And I was going through severe, severe depression where I was just crying 24 hours a day. And I talked about how it was the tears rolling down my cheeks that would wake me up. And so I was just depressed day in and day out. Well, I had 2 dogs and 2 cats that I had had for 8 years. And one of the cats had gotten sick. And I took him to the vet, and they looked him over, they took tests, they did everything that they could do, and there was nothing that they could do. Madison was dying. Madison was dying, and there was nothing that they could do to help him. And so I took Madison home, crying, obviously, hysterically, and I took him home, and later on that evening, I started looking for him. And my dad said, well, Laurie, usually cats and dogs go to a dark, quiet spot when they're going to die. So sure enough, I found him in my room. I had the lights out. He was in a cardboard box that he had crawled into. And so I went in there, and all I could think of was I had seen this woman on the Christian television network. And she had told the story about when she was a kid that she had a pet chicken, and the chicken got run over and it was dying. And she and her brothers and sisters all got together and laid their hands on it and started praying for it. And the chicken lived. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. So I brought Madison out of the box and I laid him on the floor and I placed both of my hands on him and I started praying. And I was crying hysterically. And I was like, God, you know how much I've lost. And you know what I've gone through. And you know how I feel. You and I both know that if Madison dies, I'm not going to live through this. This is too much for me. I cannot lose one more thing and survive. And I'm asking you, please, reach down from heaven and heal this cat. Please heal Madison. So I continued on like that for a little while, crying and praying and asking God. And I know that God knew, like this wasn't an idle threat. This wasn't me trying to manipulate him. I know that God knew my heart. God knew that I honestly and truly couldn't take one more loss. God knew that if Madison died, that it would be the end of me, that I was not going to survive the night. And so I went to bed that night, and I had put Madison back in the box where he was safe and comfortable. I went to bed, and I got up the next morning, and I went over and I looked in the box, and Madison opened his eyes, and he lifted his head, and then he just laid it back down. But he had actually lifted his head, and he had actually looked at me. I got so excited. I couldn't even believe it, and I thought, maybe he's going to be okay. Maybe he's going to be okay. Well, over the next day or two, he got stronger and stronger. He got out of the box on his own. He started eating. He started drinking. And within a few days, was back to his old self. I mean, he was literally well. God had healed that cat. And he lived for several years after that. And do you know what's really crazy? He died of the exact same disease. That disease had never left his body. That disease that was supposed to kill him that night just sort of went dormant. And it wasn't supposed to. Believe me, I talked to the vet about it, and the vet could not believe that he was still alive when I took him in. God healed that cat in order to save my life. Now, I can't explain why, because I prayed for God to heal me, and he didn't. I prayed for God to give me peace, and he didn't. I prayed to God that my circumstances would get better and that things would quit going downhill, but they didn't. For whatever reason, I had to walk through what I went through. I had to go through that journey. I don't know why. I don't think it's fair. I really don't think it's fair at all. But for whatever reason, God allowed me to go through that. But when I was at my darkest hour, and when I literally couldn't hang on another moment in my own strength, God reached down and intervened on my behalf, and it saved my life. Thank you for watching.